Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode of r/Malicious Compliance. In today's episode, don't care about people calling me on your old number? I'll sort it. Manager says to be off the clock by 1 p.m. Carded a cop. Before we get started, make sure to subscribe so you will never miss a video. So let's get started. Don't care about people calling me on your old number? I'll sort it. This was about 10 years ago. Also, English is my second language and I'm writing this on my phone. I had just moved to Australia and gotten a new phone, but as it turns out my number was someone else's old number. Every other week I'd get calls by a trotty who wanted to know why I wasn't on site, mate, or what I wanted done with building project ABC. Every time I explained at length that they got the wrong number, and quite often folks on the other end were absolute rude or thought I was taking the piss and insist I answered their questions or show up on site. Now, I was over it, so I googled my own number and did some digging and eventually found out the guy who had my number before, then his new number, and then I called him. I politely explained my dilemma, pointed out that there were two websites still having his old, my now new, number, and if he could please change this and let his contacts know about his new number and to delete the old one as it was getting quite tedious for me. By that time I had used my number for work, visa applications and landlords and friends, and changing it would have been a huge pain. I explained all of that. Well, of course he was just as pleasant as most of his contacts and told me something along the lines of, "I don't care, mate, that's not my problem. Sort your own shot out, mate." Well, the universe provides, and so I got a great opportunity to do just that only a few weeks later. I received a call in the early hours of one morning by another disgruntled guy telling me he was early and demanding to know where I wanted the sand put down and how to get in. I asked what sand and was told he had a full truckload of sand as ordered and no one was on site and it was all fenced off. Very briefly did I think about launching into my explanation, but I was tired and over it and then realized the opportunity provided. I snapped back at him with no uncertainty, "Mate, it's all good, dump it all right in the driveway, front of the fence, we'll sort it out when we get there." The guy said, "You sure, mate? It's a lot of sand." Me, "Absolutely sure, mate. Thanks a lot." Him, "Alright then boss," and hangs up. Well, I go back to bed, snoozing for another hour with a big smile until my phone rings again and I see it's old mate with his new number who I had saved when I called him a few weeks ago. I pick up rather chipper and he doesn't waste any time launching into a series of swear words and how he has no access to the site and that he has to move a literal ton of sand by hand and whether or not I told the sand guy to dump it all there. I replied, "You told me to sort this out myself, this is me sorting this out. You can remove the numbers and let your contacts know or not. Totally up to you, mate." He was fuming, called me a few more choice words, promising to find me and a lot more before we ended the conversation. However, the numbers disappeared from the internet really quickly after that and I never got another call again. I still have my number and every time I see a truck with sand I chuckle to myself thinking of this guy moving a ton of sand by hand and losing a fair few hours of labor because he was a douchebag and couldn't be bothered sending a few texts. Absolute gem, thanks for sharing. Got a little chuckle myself. Welcome, I'm glad I could share the chuckles. That's a lot of sand, boss. I loved the grit of your response. After all that abrasion it was time to load that off to someone else. All in all it sounds like a perfectly reasonable reaction. I used to get tons of calls and texts for a Charlie. Until the night Charlie offered to drive everyone 2 hours to a concert. Frantic "Where are you?" messages were met with "Almost there, red lights are killing me." About an hour before showtime someone called me and figured out I wasn't Charlie. The calls ended after that night. Screwing other people isn't quite the same as just screwing Charlie. I've had my number for over 7 years and I still get calls for a local plumbing company. I'm going to have to try this. I was at my job for 9 years and would still get collectors looking for the guy who had the number before me. Holy hell, like, no contact that long, take a hint. I moved offices and got a new number myself. It looks like they still haven't repurposed that hashtag. Manager says to be off the clock by 1 p.m. I work in a barbecue restaurant as the pitmaster, so I run the smokers and handle all raw meat preparation. I have to get there by 5 or 6 a.m. depending on the day in order to have food ready to open the restaurant at 11. Well, the general manager, GM, decided she was spending too much on labor and needed to cut my hours. As such, she told me at around 2 p.m. on a Thursday the following, "I need you to clock out by 1 p.m. every day no matter what." I asked for it in writing and got it. So the next day, I went to the head chef when I got there that the GM said I had to be out by 1 p.m. no matter what, and showed him the signed note. I set an alarm on my phone and got to work. I got through all the prep for the next day and was starting on the cleaning when my alarm went off. Now the pit area looked awful. The walls had some smoke stains that come off pretty easily with degreaser, but build up over time. The cooler floor had some blood on it that needed to be cleaned up before it spoiled and started smelling bad. My table had some seasoning left on it from where I seasoned the pork for the overnight load. The walls still had bits of skin, gristle, etc. stuck to them. The trash can was full. I told the head chef it was 1 p.m. and I had to go. He looked in the pit and said, "Yep. This is what I expected." But he let me clock out and go. This goes on for about a week, with the pit looking worse and worse each day. Then the district manager, DM, comes in on my day off. The head chef told me that the DM immediately started on the GM for the pit looking awful and how the pitmaster needed to stay until the pit was clean no matter what. So I got it in writing and am now currently working to about 2:30 p.m. every day doing the full cleaning I was doing before again. LOL. Ah. Manglement at its best. Good on you for getting it in writing. Oh yeah, I've been in management and I know if it isn't in writing, it didn't happen. Manglement. Love it. In writing. Glorious. The best part of any MC story, honestly. Yep. Number one thing you can do before engaging in any malicious compliance is to get it in writing. A smart manager would step back and rethink any order that an employee asked for in writing. Let's focus on the important matters at hand. How do you like to smoke a brisket? What prep work do you usually do with regard to seasoning, trimming, etc.? Cap up? Cap down? What internal temperature are you looking to achieve? Do you wrap or not? Carded a cop. Way back when I was 21, one of my 3 jobs was working 7 p.m. to 1 a.m. at a 24-hour gas station/convenience store. One of the biggest trainings that they drilled into all of the workers was to card anyone who looked younger than 40 while they were making a purchase that contained alcohol. As we were the only place open after 10 p.m., we would get cops in our area to stop in for either a coffee or alcohol depending on which shift they were on off. One night an officer came into the store, in uniform, to buy a 6-pack of beer. From my observations previously, he was off duty. I asked him for his ID. He gave me a WTF look and looked down at his uniform and said, "Really?" My response was, "Sir, I don't know who you are, since I have never been in trouble with the law. You look younger than 40, and I am required to card anyone who looks younger than 40. He was pretty pissy about it, but let me check his ID. Once he left, I started giggling. The thing is, I've heard his name before from friends who had some run-ins with him before. I knew his reputation as being a jerk. He was previously pissy with me too while I worked there. I know that when someone is busted, in our area it was mostly due to speeding on the rural roads, by the police. They are bitter about it and will twist it to make it out as though the cop was a jerk. However, the other cop in our area would bust you, give you a warning, and let you go on your way. This officer would not. Edit. I knew he was of legal age, I just wanted to inconvenience him a bit by following store policy by carding people who look under 40. His boss came in the next night and asked me about it as, apparently, the officer was ching to him about it. His boss laughed and said good job on following policy. Edit 2, in hindsight, I'm glad he didn't retaliate by pulling me over whenever he would see me driving. He was very much a jerk that way. Edit 3, maybe petty revenge? I'm kinda new here, but thought this would be malicious compliance because I was following store policy while knowing he was the legal age. I had no official interactions with him, so not sure if this serves as petty revenge that way. The guy could also have been impersonating a cop to avoid being carded. Can't be too careful. True. He could be 3 ducks in a trench coat. Replies are joking, but we did have a guy who not only had a uniform but had put flashing lights on his car to stop people. He would harass them and was arrested for impersonating a cop. He didn't seem to want to actually hurt anyone, just got off on role-playing LEO and writing tickets. I learned about it was because he was the desk security guy at my job at that time. Pretty sure you can be a cop at less than 21, how is a uniform alone supposed to mark you for the privileged citizens? Correct. Chips are even known to plant and purchase. I'm a certified bouncer in California and it's all liability. I'd have done it out of paranoia by default, thinking an ABC setup. You did excellent. You should have asked questions from his ID and told him the picture doesn't look like him. 20 plus years ago I carded everyone with alcohol, didn't matter if they looked to be older than my grandma. Had a woman get huffy, she ended up being in her 80s. She had gotten pissy and I pointed to the customer I had checked out before her and said, "You saw me just card her, right? She's my mom." The guy after the old lady got his ID out. I carded a 37-year-old guy once. He was so flattered, he asked me out. I was 21. No. Not malicious compliance, but venting instead. Used to work at CVS as a kid. Cop came in one evening and brought a bunch of snacks, sodas and magazines up to the counter, which I proceeded to ring up. Then he got really pissed and I had no idea why. A few minutes later my manager came over and shooed me out for charging the cop anything. I was expected to let him take it as free to encourage him to protect us. We were a 24-hour store. Confused the hell out of me. I don't think this is malicious. Most places that sell alcohol are anal about making sure everyone is to avoid fines/losing their license. I'd have to say this is just compliance. If you made it to the end of the video, thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe and share, and we will see you in the next video.